Hello and welcome back to the brutal capitalist dictatorship of Kuala Lumpur. I hope you're having an amazing day, because if you're having an amazing day, I'm having an amazing day. If I'm having an amazing day, you should also be having an amazing day. Okay, so as usual, I'm doing my 40-minute cardio before my weights. It's always good to do 40 minutes of cardio in order to warm up your body before the pump, right? Just don't do uphill sprints if you're doing squats on the same day. Learn from my mistake, you know. Yes, unless you want to be walking with crutches, you just don't want to be doing uphill sprints on the same day you do squats, okay? Right, so today's video is going to be another jog and talk video, yes. And don't worry, I won't get knocked down by a car. I'm not that blind. You know, Israel's probably the best damn investment the Americans have ever made. And if there weren't an Israel, they'd probably have to invent one. Yes. Oh, you think I'm anti-Semitic for saying something like this? How dare I say something as egregious as this, right? Well, the thing is, those are not my words. Those are the American President Joe Biden's words. Yes, he said that Israel is the best damn investment America has ever made. And if there weren't an Israel, well, they would probably have to invent one. Yes, so Joe Biden must therefore be an anti-Semitic Zionist then. You see, the modern state of Israel, not to be confused with the ancient kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of King David and Solomon, the modern state of Israel is an artificial creation that exists purely on the good graces of America and the United States, right? And these good graces do not come without strings attached. For as long as Israel exists in its current incarnation, it must always do the bidding of the American empire, and it must always therefore serve the interests of the imperialist West if it wants to keep its pocket money, right? For you see, it was never, ever created on the approval and consent of the local people, but it was forced upon them by the British mandate, and after that, the American empire, right? So, Israel is basically a country that was created by coercion, right? And the inevitable displacement of its inhabitants, known as the Nakba. You see, Israel could collapse next week if it were not for all the help it receives from the Western imperialist capitalist powers. Yes, the claim that they exist on the good graces of God is entirely hogwash when you consider that it receives millions and millions of dollars a day from America, right? And if it were to stop receiving its funding from the global North imperialist powers, well, it would be tragic for the leaders of Israel, right? So I've always said, why not test, you know, Israel's claim of divine providence, right? They keep claiming that God stands with Israel. Why not test that theory out and stop funding Israel completely? Yes, let them pick themselves up by their bootstraps and see how far they get. Yes? Sounds like a good idea, right? Yeah. I mean, you Americans always apply the bootstraps mentality to poor people in your country, you know. Whenever poor people complain that they don't have enough money to pay for healthcare, you tell them that, you know, they ought to stop eating avocado toast, as if a poor person could even afford a plate of avocado toast in the first place, right? You are happy to apply the bootstraps mentality when it concerns downtrodden people in your own country, so why not apply it on a macrocosmic scale to one of the most pampered, privileged countries in the world, right? Whose citizens enjoy their standard of living on the backs of Americans who fund them through tax dollars, right? So while your Americans are struggling to pay for healthcare, they're struggling to pay for food, they're struggling to pay for housing, they're struggling to pay for their children's tertiary education. Israelis are enjoying all these things at your expense. Are you mad, American? Well, today I would like to talk to you about a deviant, perverted form of socialism known as labor Zionism, right? Now, I've made at least a dozen videos talking about how Zionism is in fact a deviant form of Judaism, right? That is actually a 19th century racist essentialist, racist, Western chauvinist philosophy that came out of the minds of European secular Jews, and I use the term very loosely because I don't think they practice any Jewish culture. But I also want to talk about this thing known as labor Zionism, right? Labor Zionism, you see, is an oxymoron in the same way MAGA communism is, right? Because MAGA is an extremely reactionary movement, and I believe I've made tons and tons of videos and posts debunking that nonsense, right? There's a group of people, a group of strange, weird, right-wing tankies in America, like Jackson Hinkle, Douglas Kim, Infrared Haas, who promote this thing known as MAGA communism, right? Where they say, you know, the right-wing Republicans are the true communists of the country, and they have more in common with the values of real communists than degenerate leftists do, right? Funny, because I'm actually a global South Asian socialist with an actual socialist party. I'm with the Party Socialist Malaysia, the Socialist Party of Malaysia. And I can tell you, MAGA communism is hogwash because it's basically a hate group that's meant to basically appropriate communism or socialism for its very own purpose, right? Basically, they want to push out the gay people, push out the transgender people, push out anyone who does not conform to their 1950s heteronormative sensibilities, and basically turn it into like basically the 1950s with Soviet characteristics, right? Basically that's it, right? Because they keep pushing these Western chauvinist reactionary ideas, you know, like for example, the idea that the nuclear family is the only acceptable family in civilized society. That's a very chauvinistic Western idea that these MAGA tankies like Midwestern Marx and all these people keep promoting. But also, they promote this weird idea that gay and lesbian and transgender people are somehow agents of imperialism, right? Which is hogwash, right? Yes, I'm aware that countries like Israel use a thing called pinkwashing in order to basically whitewash their crimes and make it seem like they are the more tolerant and accepting country compared to the backward Islamists, the so-called backward Islamists, right? But to blame all gay and transgender people and to blame all minorities for the crimes of a right-wing fascist regime is itself fascist, right? So MAGA communism, you know, is basically a reactionary ideology. It is basically National Socialism with American characteristics, and is basically, you know, a false, something that's meant to instill false consciousness in the masses rather than curing the masses of their reactionary tendencies. It encourages these reactionary tendencies in the masses, right? So I've never accepted it as an authentic form of socialism. But having said that, however, you know, I find it very odd that there are these videos from Israel actually telling us, you know, that communism has never worked except in Israel, right? And basically we're supposed to believe that a kibbutz is basically communism in practice, right? Which is ironic because communism is supposed to be anti-exploitation, and your kibbutzes exist on the basis of exploitation, right? Because the kibbutz that you sit on, the house that you live in, was owned by a Palestinian 80, 90 years ago, right? So how can you say that this thing that you're practicing, this perversion that you call labor Zionism, is in fact a form of communism, when it exists on the basis of exploitation? And communism is, strictly speaking, about anti-exploitation, right? You know, every self-respecting socialist understands that you cannot do communism and do exploitation at the same time, because that's like being a Muslim and eating lots of pork or drinking lots of alcohol at the same time, right? And yet these so-called labor Zionists, I think in an attempt to make Zionism look more palatable to the progressive left, have basically, like the MAGA communists, co-opted what is supposed to be a progressive and anti-exploitative, anti-oppression ideology, anti-imperialist as well, and they have taken it and basically appropriated it for their own nefarious purposes, right? You see, just because David Ben-Gurion, right, was an admirer of Lenin and he was an admirer of Marx, it certainly does not make him a socialist, right? See, you can admire political figures, but if you're not practicing what they preached, then you cannot call yourself a follower of their ideology, right? Marx himself said that the black skin cannot, sorry, I hiccups. Marx himself said that the white flesh cannot be free as long as the black flesh is still in chains, right? It's a bit hard to jog and talk at the same time, right? And Marx would also, as Lenin, would also recognize Israel as an imperialist outpost, right? A lackey state of the United States, right? Which is doing the bidding of the imperialists. Go read Lenin's Imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. Go read that, right? Any self-respecting socialist understands that Israel exists on the good graces of the American bourgeoisie and the American capitalist ruling class, right? So how could such a country also call itself a socialist country when America has made, has gone out of its way to destroy and sabotage every single successful socialist movement that has existed in history, right? Or why is it that the West, which goes all out of its way to sabotage every single socialist movement throughout all of modern history, suddenly has a soft spot for Israeli socialism, right? Because that type of socialism is a form of false consciousness and it doesn't serve anyone's interest but the Western reactionaries, right? The number one precept of the socialist is that if you are exploiting someone, right, you are a reactionary, right? And Israel exists not only on the good graces of the West, but on the exploitation and suffering of the Palestinian people who for 70 years have been displaced, thrown into refugee camps, and barred from their own ancestral homeland to make room for migrants, imperialist migrants from Europe, right? Any self-respecting socialist would understand this to be a form of exploitation of a stronger power, bullying a weaker group of people, right? And any socialist understands that the history of humanity has always been the history of class struggle, of the oppressed people with a correct cause struggling against the ruling class with an incorrect cause, right? So if you are basically on the side of the ruling class in this current situation, you cannot be a socialist, right? But the fact is that socialism, but the primary contradiction of socialism is class, right? Not race, not ethnicity, not religion, class, right? That's not to say that you can't be religious if you're a socialist, right? But race, ethnicity, or religion should not take first precedence over class, right? You organize on the basis of class, right? Because the working people of the world have no country, right? So you organize on the basis of class rather than race or religion, right? So that's another contradiction of Labour Zionism, because Zionism is essentially a nationalist movement, right? That is supposed to be a movement that creates a Jewish ethno-state in the Middle East, or at least a Jewish state with a majority Jewish population, right? Predominantly Western Jewish people. They don't so much like non-Western Jews. But the point is, socialism has no room for ethno-states, because the primary contradiction is class. Class, right? Not race, not religion, not ethnicity. Those are secondary concerns. So I think this is what's happening. The Labour Zionist wants to position themselves as the reasonable Zionist. You know, the Zionist who's like one of the good ones, not the evil, deranged Zionist who wants to wipe the Palestinians off the face of the earth or to turn Israel into a homogeneous ethno-state. No. The Labour Zionist says, oh, well, we are socialists, so, you know, we have progressive values. And the fact is that Labour Zionists might say that when they don't feel that their Jewish ethno-state is under threat, right? But the thing is, the moment they start to question the loyalty of their Arab comrades, is the moment they will turn on them like a pack of wolves, basically, right? One moment they'll be saying, oh, we're all brothers, we can all live together in peace and harmony, class comes first. You know, we are Labour Zionists. We are Zionists, but we also believe in class first over race or ethnicity, right? But you see the Labour Zionist reaction if the Arab population starts to overtake the Jewish population in Israel. Let's see just how friendly these progressive nationalists really are when we see the Arab population burgeoning, right? Let's just say the Arab population were not 20% of the Israeli population. In fact, I hate the term Israeli Arab. Call them what they are, Palestinians living in Israel, right? Let's just say that they were not just a 20% token minority in order to prove that Israel was not racist. But let's just say that they were about 45 to 50%, right? Do you think the Labour Zionists would be perfectly comfortable? No! The Labour Zionists will start getting fidgety, right? The Labour Zionist is only a socialist or is only a progressive when it's convenient, right? When he knows that he gets to ensure the continuation of his Israeli state. I don't think he would be inviting those displaced Palestinians living in refugee camps back to his kibbutz to work with him, right? But the moment, you know, the Arab population starts booming, well, or when it comes to the crunch, you will see where these Labour Zionists really stand. Like the MAGA communists who will abandon communism or who will abandon socialism when it becomes convenient. Let's say they get some proximity to capital and they abandon the cause. The Labour Zionists will throw their Arab friends under the bus if they ever feel that there's a threat to the existential status of Israel as it currently is, right? I'm going to end this video by saying that no, you cannot create a socialist society on stolen land, and you cannot do socialism at the exploitation of others, right? you are not recognized as real socialists. No socialist in the world recognizes labor Zionists as real socialists, yeah? At least no self-respecting socialist. So if you were a true socialist in Israel, you would be calling for a free Palestine from the river to the sea, right? That is what you would be doing. And because that is the party line of any other socialist in the world. Thank you. Have a nice day.